My name's Casey Christensen, former Sergeant, USMC. I was in the Marine Corps 10 years. Did 2 full combat deployments. I had one that was interrupted. Spent like 7 of my 10 years overseas, actually, which was pretty nice. Was born in Missoula, Montana here. Kind of moved around quite a bit as a young man, and then joined the military in 1999. Right out of the gate, went to California for about 1.5 years. Had my young wife with me, then shipped from there to Okinawa. Was there unaccompanied for 1 year, came home, and the war on Iraq was about to start. I actually left the day my first daughter was born, January 16th, 2003. I was advanced party to Iraq that first time. We got there, nobody else was there. And so we set up some camps and things in Kuwait, unloaded all the gear, and waited for the war to start. A canal crossing in Baghdad, into Baghdad. It was the first canal crossing into Baghdad. I was a D9 dozer operator. I had a giant armored D9. We needed to get into this canal. We needed to put a floating bridge across, and we had come under mortar fire from the enemy on the other side. We had been mortaring the other side all morning, thought it was clear. I went to work, and they started to target my dozer. So we were instructed to bring them back and climb up and over and behind the dike. So there was a dike, and they wouldn't have been able to see us. So we got out of their line of sight, but they were still trying to find us. And in doing so, they hit an AAV, and it killed everybody in there, 14 Marines. And that really upset the grunts. And so they assaulted the other side, and I immediately turned my dozer around, went back, and started to dig the canal while watching them assault the other side. And the point being is I carried a lot of guilt for those 14 Marines for a long time. And it was years later, I was having some real issues. My relationship with my family was breaking down at the time. I was living in the woods. You know, I dropped off the grid. It took me 2 years to even come back into society. I didn't have a driver's license, a bank account, an address. I didn't register vehicles. I didn't buy insurance. I didn't do any of the things that people do. I had to go to the edge a couple times before I finally started to pull myself out. I had to disengage from all the people that I was with at the time. I was at the point where I was contemplating suicide, and knew that if I didn't reach out to somebody, that I was gonna hurt myself. We hear a lot of the, we get a lot of the dark tales and stories and things, but I like to talk about the good stuff. We go into the communities, we build schools, we build roads, we build relationships with these folks. We call them comrades or community relation projects. The medical guys, the dental guys, they go out, they take care of people. We visit old folks' homes. We pick up litter on the beach. My interactions and the reason for me being with the Red Willow is because of the community that I found here. Building a community for oneself, I think, is very important to break the patterns of isolation and avoidance. And like I said, the modality isn't important. The will to step into that arena, to put yourself out there, and then overcome those initial pangs of anxiety. All of those dark thoughts and things, they flee, and I'm able to hold on to the positive. I'm able to remember to forgive myself, and I'm able to think of the future, and to see it and to be happy about it, and to see myself in it, which is very important. Yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, meditation, running, hiking, fishing, boating, whatever activity, whatever modality, whatever therapy you come across that seems to make sense to you, and that you can take and use. And that's the most important part, is the execution of it. Consistency is the most important thing in health and recovery, is especially when we start talking about neuroplasticity and changing our behaviors. You have to be very consistent. It helps to attach it to routines. That's one thing about yoga that I have used. Yoga is a tool for me. You want to engage activities in such a way that you can maintain it. I found a yoga class that I could get into and that I could stick with, and then that gave me the confidence to find a place like the Red Willow where I could come to and be comfortable. That was what drew me to the Red Willow, was the comfort of it. They were very inviting and very welcoming. Transitions. You were talking about transitioning, and the more I think about it, the less I like this idea. It really heaps expectation on both the veteran and the civilian, and I found for myself, and I think for many others, for one reason or another, we end up coming home and we estrange our friends and family. We find ourselves alone. And then there's this idea of changing, like the veteran needs to change and transition back into society. And we talk about the conditioning and all the conditioning that we went through and everything. But in that light, it seems like that's a negative thing. Like, ooh, you've been conditioned, you've been brainwashed, is what they want to say. And so transitioning into civilian life, to me, sounds like we want you to be willfully ignorant and to act as if you didn't know these things. There are also really good things from our training and our conditioning and just our way of life that I think should be retained. As a veteran, I don't want to change. You know, I made the decisions I made, and I changed who I was, and I adapted to the situations I was for good reason. There's room on both sides. We need to come together. So much less veterans need to transition, more, hey, let's come together and learn about each other and find the strengths and weaknesses of both and help each other. So I feel very privileged and honored to have been able to come back from the brink and hopefully show a new path, show that it can be done. I have a lot of hope. So I realize now that that was an irrational guilt that I held for the death of those Marines. I didn't do that. And I can remember that sometimes. And other times I feel very guilty. But it's been through this idea of community and of resilience that helped me come from a place where I was at, which was non-productive. You know, I wasn't doing much, just trying to survive at that time. And it brought me to a place where now I'm able to give back. And that was my goal, and that was my path. But it wasn't until I found the Red Willow that it became concrete and that it became feasible, doable, that I actually saw it. And it was through the efforts of my friends here and my community that I was able to make it. So I'm really excited, I'm really glad to be a yoga instructor, helping veterans and other trauma groups, whole body, whole person ideas and concepts make sense to us. We want to be taken care of on a whole person basis. And I think the paradigms are shifting. Places like Red Willow, little places like this all over the country. Doctors are changing their perspectives. I think we're on the cusp of some really great times and some really healthy times.